welcome to EyeOpener, powered by Siemens. And now, please welcome your host, Gugan Sangha.
Hello and welcome to our new product podcast series, EyeOpener. For those who want to get a deeper understanding of the technology used within predictive maintenance and Industry 4.0. My name is Gugan Sangha and I'm your host. I would like to introduce Adam Poole from Senseye, who will be joining me on the first episode where we're going to be diving in to the functionality and design used within the predictive maintenance industry.
Awesome. Great to be here.
Perfect. So, hi Adam, hope you're well. So if you could just start off by introducing yourself, that'd be perfect.
Cool. I'm Adam Poole. I'm Product Design Manager at Senseye. I've been here for 5 years, and previously I spent 17 years in aerospace, working with helicopters in all kinds of ways. My main focus is making things that look good and are easy to use. That's the whole point, really.
Perfect. Cool. Okay, so let's dive into this topic. So I guess the first question I have is really around some of the key technical terms which are used within design. And I guess our audience have those questions as well. So the first question I really want to ask you is, what is UX?
Well, yeah, UX, if you Googled it, it's a right old minefield if you're ever trying to get advice for it, because everyone's an expert, but there doesn't seem to be much in the way of formal training. People do like a year on it and say they're an expert. But really, for me, user experience is what it is, which is making things that are easy to use. And what you really want it to be is so easy to use you don't even notice it. You just use it all the time and don't even think about it. And everyone's got things in their lives that are good like that, and you don't even think about it. It might be your cooker, having the buttons in the right place and the dials work properly, because some of them are terrible. Or even the classic example is doors that you know how to open.
Yep.
How many glass doors do you walk up to and you're like, do I pull it or do I push it? And that's a classic problem, which is still a problem, and it should be fixed by now. And the things that work so well you don't think about it, there's an awful lot of thought gone into them. So we try and put an awful lot of thought into making things be simple. It's the easiest way to explain it, I think. And it's a constant job, especially in predictive maintenance where we've got like machine learning, which is complex. We don't want people to have to deal with the complexity. We want people to just live with the simplicity of it, really. You don't need to know that.
No.
You just need it to do all the work for you. Yeah. I like drawing parallels with cars, really. It's like in the old days, you used to open the bonnet and fix everything under it. Well, my dad did and I didn't. But nowadays, you don't need to do that at all, really. You might look at the oil and the water, but everything else is automated and everything's a computer. So it should work nicely for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way, technology as a whole, especially in our day-to-day lives, we don't realise that there's so much that it does for us that you're oblivious to it. You know, it's just, you kind of have that expectation because you know it's there. You know it's something that's going to help you out. So I guess the second question I have really is around UI. So, that's another technical term which is used within product design. And it will be interesting to get your views on that.
Well, yeah, so if UX is being easy to use, then UI is user interface and you want it to look good. So those things go together. They have to match the way people are thinking about wanting to use things. So classic example being the iPhone, which, defined a lot of best practice for all of this. You need to know that buttons look like buttons, that you can press them or click them, and understand what it's going to do next as well. So there's an awful lot of thought into, if I do this, what happens next? And people have what we call a mental model of what they think might happen. And from a design perspective, we want the interface to kind of match that. The moment you do stuff they're not expecting, they're confused and you're wasting their time. So you want the least number of clicks, least for them to do, and the least amount for them to think about in order to do the things they're trying to do. And that's the purpose of a good interface. And you'll find it even within the iPhone, when it first came out, it was relatively simple what it needed to do. It didn't even have copy and paste, So that was something that came later. And even now, the stuff that's crept in, there's bits that are lovely and there's bits that are like, I'm not sure if that worked. A classic example is like Bluetooth, which still was not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's because it's like a little bit of a black box. It's on or it's off. It connects. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you're like, you have in your mind, you're trying to think about what's happening. But in reality, something else entirely might be going on. And you're like, maybe I'll just switch it off and switch it back on again. And it tends to work. But between the on and off state, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So when you're making interfaces, you try and give feedback, like tell people what's happening so they know, especially when you're like, if you think you're downloading something, it's nice to know how long it's going to take. Not just a classic, like it did a countdown and then goes back to the original, that kind of thing. I had some software like that. It would count 10, 9, 8, 7, and then
it jumps back
and then
up,
goes
right?
to 10,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
like,
it.
It's like not useful.
Yeah.
And the main thing is, like from a design perspective, is you just fundamentally, when you want to make people happy, it really is that pure and simple. You want to make things that give people joy, which sounds odd when we're talking about engineering and predictive maintenance, but there's no excuse for not having that kind of viewpoint on things, because you want the people's days to go well. You want to save them time. You don't want to give them frustration, and that's the angle. It's really quite pure and simple. If they're moaning at you, you have to fix it and make it quicker and easier, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
And what's handy is, like, coming from aerospace, the driving factor there was safety. So if you screwed stuff up in a helicopter cockpit, people are going to die. It's really that simple. So you've got to be very considered in which buttons go where, and you can't just have everything on a touch screen, because they might reach out, and not want to look at it and all that kind of stuff. So coming from that background to other fields, it's quite a motivating factor.
I guess the other thing as well, I guess when it comes to like interface and it comes to the user experience, etc. I guess some people tend to do the reverse engineer, so they look at the problems that could potentially arise, and then I guess it's a matter of kind of fixing them as you go. But then sometimes you're kind of put in a situation where the problem's occurred and you have to think about what the solution is and how, you're going to get that to the end user, right?
And what's tricky is that end users will sometimes tell you what they think the problem is.
Yeah.
But it's not actually that. If you watch them doing things, it's something else entirely.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to what the people say, but it's always really handy to observe them as well, because we're actually really bad kind of eyewitnesses for stuff like that. I've had that many times when I even working with pilots who are like super skilled, know an awful lot, tell you one thing, and then you watch them doing it and go, you know that thing you said you told me you did, you don't actually do that.
Yeah. You
did this. And you can't necessarily say explicitly, you've just got to absorb that information and then put together a better solution and put it in front of them. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted. So getting people to tell you what they want is really hard. So we have to take in like a lot of information and actually say, I'm not sure that's what they want. And try and angle it and test it and keep iterating on it as well.
To find out more, search Sensei Predictive Maintenance.